What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome in to another episode of the Triple Play Fantasy Baseball Show, a proud member of Underdog and the Underdog Fantasy family. And for those that are digging fantasy baseball, you're ready to do your fantasy baseball drafts, but you don't want the league-long commitment. You don't want to have to set your lineups all season, but you're looking to get that draft fix. Head over to Underdog Fantasy right now, and if you use promo code TRIPLE, they'll give you a deposit match up to $100. So basically what they're doing is they're doubling your first deposit. It's a win-win for you. So if you deposit $100, you'll get $100 back. It's a pretty good deal, $50 and so on. So head over to Underdog, use promo code TRIPLE to get all that fun stuff going over at Underdog. Back at you guys tonight. We got Marty and Doc. No LC tonight, which is a rare sighting these days. But we're thinking of our guy tonight, and we'll try to carry the show without our lovable little cheesecake here. But Doc and Marty, fellas, what's been going on with you guys?
Do you want to know, David?
I didn't even try to go the football route, but if we had our
it's been a good work week, okay? I got a nice haircut.
That is a nice haircut.
Small victories.
Yeah, the Chiefs,
get to
man.
See you guys.
Yeah, it's always good to see you guys. Chiefs back-to-back champs for the first time in 20 years. We have a back-to-back champion. I can't hate that at all. It was very nice to see. Marty, your Detroit Lions gave the Niners a good run for their money a few weeks ago, so there's hope there. And your Detroit Tigers are potentially have a nice season ahead of them too.
The fact that we were able to talk about playoff football and Detroit Lions in the same breath is something that I don't think I'll ever get sick of, nor do I know how long it will last. Detroit Tigers, everyone is, people are coming into spring training. The news is flowing. I was saying, I tweeted yesterday, the guys at MLB Trade Rumors are earning their paycheck this week. Those guys, every couple seconds, I update it, something else comes out. Fun times, unless you're a Kyle Bradish owner, and it's not so fun.
It is tough. The Kyle Bradish, the announcement today, I believe it was a partially torn UCL. Is that what came out?
Yeah.
And he's expected to miss the start of the season going on the IL. I'm sure he's off your guys' draft boards as well at this point.
Off my draft boards, but on my betting board. So I work for a Baltimore news media publishing company, and one of my colleagues was the first person to tweet it from the source. And so I told her, I was like, thank you so much. You don't know me, but you might have made me some money. And she said, yeah, sure. Let me know if there's anything I can do in the future. I said, contact me right away if you get this type of news.
Wait, is this like inside trading? Can you do this?
I don't think it's inside trading because she would just let me know before she tweets it out.
Yeah.
She's at spring training in Sarasota right now. I won't say her name, but
turn
on those notifications from Underdog. These are clutch.
They are. Doc, have you thought about growing your curls out? Because Forrest thinks your head is too thin. It's as thin as a Pringle.
No, I'm just going to put on some weight.
Yeah, thicken your face up a little bit.
Exactly.
Well, we're excited to have you guys joining us tonight, whether it's on the podcast or live on YouTube. We've got our Triple Play Outfield preview. So we finished kind of going across the infield. Now we're heading over to the outfield to talk about a lot of outfielders. It's a position that, to be honest with you guys, is not as deep as it was in recent years, and it's very stud heavy at the top, especially if you are looking for stolen bases. So we're excited to go through tonight the top 50. We're going to give you guys our favorites in each of the ranges here, going inside the top 50, players we love and players we're fading. So as we do every week, we're going to start in the top 10 to kick things off here. So Doc, as I pull up the draft board over the last 2 weeks on NFBC, I would like you to kick things off with who you are trying to take as much of as you can in drafts going inside the top 10.
So this is my AL MVP, and you'd mentioned, David, when you draft this player, you just feel like your team is good. So that should give it away right now if people pay attention. That's Yordan Alvarez. So Yordan Alvarez, when you look at him right now, the 9th ranked outfielder, an ADP of 16. So look, he's not going to give you any steals, but the last 2 years, a 13.9% walk rate, the K rate below 20% at 18.9 and 18.5%. A 277 or above average in the last 3 seasons, and his expected batting average was higher the last 3 seasons than his actual batting average, meaning he's had some bad luck in that category. He had 31 homers in 114 games, which if you extrapolate that out over a full season would be 44, which means he could still miss time and perform and give you a return on that. He is the 96th percentile or above in expected batting average, expected slug, expected WOBA, average exit velocity, barrel percentage, hard hit percentage. He is one of the best, if not the best, pure hitter in baseball. And he is only 26 years old, albeit a 26-year-old with bad knees. He could be in for a monster year. The most RBIs he's had in a season, I believe, is 106. I'm going to double check that right now. But the books have him as the favorite. The
104.
104. So let's say he plays 145, 150. He could get 120 easily. So I like Yordan Alvarez. I think this is probably the cheapest his draft price has been. And he DHs a lot of games. So the fact he has outfield eligibility is great.
I don't disagree with any of the points you said. The fact that he's the 9th outfielder off the board right now, ADP, I believe, is kind of like, yeah, it's right now the back end of the first round, start of the second round. He's a great player to get at the end of the first, kind of if you have that 15th pick in a 12 or a 15-team league. I love him there. Like you said, the outfield eligibility with how thin outfield gets outside the top, combined with the fact he's probably maybe outside Pete Alonso, the most locked in guarantee 30 homer bat in the game. Him, Aaron Judge, Pete Alonso are probably the trio in that group. But one of the things you didn't mention that I think also needs to be said is he's also a very good batting average asset as well. Each of the last 3 years, 277, 308, 293 batting average over the last 3 seasons. So
I did say that, you just didn't listen.
Oh, sorry. But yeah, he is giving you an above average batting average along with that insane power. The RBI production will be there for him. 97 RBIs each of the last 2 seasons, besides the 104 he had in his career year. If you go by RBIs, like you mentioned, Doc, not really going to give you any steals, but he's a 4-category contributor that also has an amazing eye at the plate with his insane high walk rate and a strikeout rate that you would think for a slugger, last 2 years, sub 20%. Just ridiculous numbers. Yordan Alvarez, if he's healthy, is among the best hitters in the game. I'm right there with you, Doc.
Like I said, I think he's the AL MVP this year, and he is the third best odds. So, you look at the outfielders on there, or even if you wanted to do it by AL only players, you're getting him at a lower price here than what the books think he's capable of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't disagree with you there, Doc. On the subject of Yordan, we do have a question in the chat from Forrest. Yordan for Jackson Chourio and Kerry Carpenter. Do you think that's a fair offer? Now, Marty, Kerry Carpenter is part of your Detroit Tigers. So what do you feel like? Is Kerry Carpenter going along with Jackson Chourio? Do you think that's a fair value?
No. You keep Yordan 10 times out of 10.
All right, fair enough. We can keep it there. And so Yordan is definitely going to be our answer there.
Unless you're building, I guess, for you're building for 3 years down the line. But even it's Yordan. I mean,
you could get more than that.
If you're selling Yordan, dude, just go for like a top prospect. Like not Kerry Carpenter, someone that stumbled into playing time for one of the worst teams in baseball. He'll hit 255. He's going to get you 25 home runs. But I mean, Yordan can change your whole. You can change that. You can change your whole season.
Yeah, if you're trading Yordan for prospects or like young players, you need 5 or 6 of that, not just 2.
Yeah, I think Yordan, we all agree. I think you can get more for him if you are the one that is trading Yordan away. If you are trading Jackson Chourio and Kerry Carpenter, I think we both all agree that is definitely a good trade for you, and we would make that move as well. Back to you now, Marty, for this range of the 1 through 10. Who are you drafting the most of here?
Well, let me just first off say I will draft every single one of these guys. Mm-hmm. If they fall to me in the right place, I'm going to draft every one of them. But Michael Harris, the second.
Interesting. Okay.
The dose. So at Glarf this weekend, I had the first overall pick. Of course, I went Ronald Acuna, and I followed that up with Michael Harris and Vladimir Guerrero. Mm-hmm. What I love about Michael Harris, XBA of over 300. He's going to hit just somewhere around 18 to 22 home runs. He's going to get close to the 100 runs, I believe, this year. He's going to get you around 20 stolen bases. He has such a great floor in everything that I want to accomplish in those first 5, 6, 7 rounds. High batting average, stolen bases, and the ability to get the counting stats as well. And he doesn't kill you in home runs. He'll hit somewhere around league average. So yeah, Michael Harris, like you can't go wrong in these first 10. But if you wait on it and Michael Harris is there, he's a great complement to no matter what build you're making.
So I have two questions for you, Marty. Number one, does the lineup context matter to you in terms of that there was a lot of games last year he hit at the bottom of the order, killing his counting stats potentially, where if he's hitting ninth, it's not going to get as many RBI opportunities, as many at bats, many chances to score runs. Is that worry you at all?
Let's say if everything stays the same, this can be his output, right? 76 runs, 57 RBI is light. I believe that's going to go up somewhere around 65 to 70. In the lineup, yeah, that's going to be a difference of maybe 75, 100 at bats. If he's buried in the ninth hole, but I think that will be rare. And even if so, everything else is going to be there. It doesn't worry me, no. I believe it does limit his. This is the conversation we often have is the ground versus floor versus ceiling. I believe it does cap his ceiling. I don't think I don't think he can reach those the highest levels. But the floor is excellent.
The other question I would have for you is his ground ball rate. Each of his first two seasons has been over 50%. Granted, his first year it was closer to 60%. This past season, 51.6%, which is an improvement, but the MLB average being 44%, still a lot higher than we'd like to see. He does have above average home run to fly ball rates. So
he's 22 years old. He can make those adjustments, and his sprint speed's excellent. So it's still going to allow him to get the doubles or the singles and infield singles and everything like that. Of course, I'd love to see the launch angle, around somewhere around 14, 15. That would be incredible. But with even all of these faults, he's still producing, and all of the advanced stats back him up. And like I said, he's only 22 years old. I'm pumped for him for this year. I'm excited to have him on a couple teams. This is the first time I've ever had him, so
I will say he had a better year than I thought, considering he hit 201.
He had a horrible first half. He had a horrible
not even a first half, just March through May, because he hit 372 in June. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, it is interesting. The one thing I think that's also different is you're getting him at a little bit more of a discount this year.
Yeah, he's picked 30, 31.
Yeah, so you're getting him kind of like you said, the 2-3 turn. Last year he was, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he like pretty much almost like a borderline first back end of like kind of like the turn pick last year?
I will put it this way. I have no idea where he was, because where he was, I would not have drafted him. So I didn't even pay attention.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, when we drafted at FPAS, he was like a third, fourth round pick, like where he is now. But I think by the time draft season got closer, he was more of a solid, like early to mid second round pick, if I remember correctly. So definitely more of a value. He does give you stolen bases. He is outfield eligible. There were certain instances where he hit closer to the top end of the Braves lineup, depending on which handedness pitcher they were facing. So there is a lot of upside there for him going as the 31st player off the board here. Do you guys boost Mookie Betts up higher than the fourth outfielder? Obviously, you're probably not bumping him over Ronald Acuna, but the fact he's also second base eligible, does that put him number 2 for any of you guys, or do you like him at number 4?
I would take him over Corbin Carroll. I think Corbin Carroll will give you higher upside in stolen bases, but his shoulder concerns me a little bit, and lineup context, Mookie Betts is in a better lineup.
Yeah, for Mookie, I think he's one of those guys. If I'm drafting multiple teams and I want to get the best second baseman by far, he'll be a good, third, fourth pick. I have him over Carroll because of the same reason Doc does, because of the shoulder. I don't hate a Kyle Tucker before him either, though. To be honest,
I don't either.
But the position eligibility, second base, that's clean living if you get him at second base. So if you have the fourth pick, you got to take him.
Yeah. I got to say, guys, it's very interesting when you get to kind of the back end of the top 10 here. Guys, we didn't talk about Fernando Tatis Jr., Juan Soto, Aaron Judge.
Tatis is a dislike.
Well, we can go right into your dislike then, Doc. So Fernando Tatis Jr. going as the 8th player off the board. We know what he looks like when he's right, but the question is, will he be right? Because he has not been that way for most of his career. The upside's tantalizing, Doc, but you're not biting for it at the 8th ADP here.
I'm not going to get him at all. First of all, do you guys trust him?
Not at that
honestly, point. I do. I think he's good there. I like all of his advanced stats check out. The power wasn't there in the first half because of his wrist. He had multiple wrist surgeries. Like there's no way
I'm
it's going to
not
bounce
necessarily even talking about the skills. I'm talking about the person. This is a guy that has been busted for performance enhancing drugs. When he got back and he fractured his wrist, remember he was playing soccer in the outfield.
He's a goofball.
He got in a motorcycle accident a couple of years ago in the Dominican. This is a guy, sometimes it just doesn't click for people. And
the knucklehead tax.
Yeah, and he's gotten paid already. So the maturity bothers me a little bit. You don't lose someone like Juan Soto and replace him. Juan Soto has an over 400 OBP in all 5 years he's been in the big leagues. And when you think about that, in the NFBC, they don't count OBP as a stat. But if Soto hits before Tatis, that's more men on base for RBI opportunities.
Soto's not with the Padres.
But that's what I'm saying, losing him.
Oh, gotcha.
And then if Soto hits behind Tatis and gets on base, that puts him in a better chance for scoring position, a.k.a. runs. So you look at the Padres 5 through 9 because Machado is going to hit 4. Jake Cronenworth 5, Luis Campusano 6, Jurickson Profar 7, Matthew Batten 8th, Jose Azocar 9th. That is an awful 5 through 9. I don't like the protection behind him. The walk percentage dropped from 11.4 to 8.3. So he got a little more happy swinging the bat. And then you break it down by half. First half, 71 games, a 288 batting average, 16 home runs, 96 runs plus RBIs, and 14 steals. The second half, 70 games, 225, 9 home runs, 73 runs plus RBIs, and 15 steals. So he got you one more stolen base, but the power went down. The runs and RBIs went down. I don't like that's the most recent we saw him going into here. I don't think he did anything to help his draft price, and I think there's more reasons for us to fade him with a top 10 pick.
Yeah, he had a really bad September.
Yeah, I think at this point, would you guys take Juan Soto or Fernando Tatis?
Soto.
I would take Fernando Tatis. Give me those steals, please. But I have no problem with Soto. If they take that's what I'm saying. This top 10 is insane. You can't go wrong. I'll go into my fades, and they're not even fades. It's just Jordan and Judge, the injury, the lack of stolen bases. I just would rather not. I'd rather go Tatis.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I have Soto and 2 Gladiators. So I don't have a dislike really, but if there was, it would only because you don't get one of the categories and injury. I think they're Jordan and both Judge. They have that injury risk there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely that makes it a concern for sure. Soto in New York is going to be interesting because we know the power output should be there for him, but you never know with the pressure of being a Yankee. Some players thrive and some don't.
He doesn't. The way he bats, he doesn't really pull the ball that way. So he's going to kind of have to redefine his swing, which he's probably behind Jordan, or maybe he is the best hitter in baseball. So I think he's going to have the ability to do that. But I think it's kind of a question mark just because that's not how he doesn't usually hit the ball over there with tons of power. But I guess
this is a contract year for him too.
That too. Yeah, he'll pick. He can't. I mean, he's not.
And he's a Scott Boras client.
Yeah. My last question for you guys before we go to the next range here: will any of you draft Corbin Carroll?
I hope so. I hope he falls to
where his ADP is, which is a top 5 pick.
No,
I'd go Julio and I'd go Betts or Tucker before him.
So you wouldn't take him earlier than 5. Like where's the earliest? Where's the earliest that you would take Corbin Carroll?
I would take him before Tatis.
So you would take him number 5.
Yeah, I think that's tough to say. Yeah, I would say because just the stolen bases, that'll be nice. And who knows? We're not doctors. We don't know if his shoulder's going to be okay or not. It probably will be. I don't know, but I could see if you get him in the 6th pick, that's good.
Look, I know that those 57 steals last year.
54.
Oh, 54. But I don't know. And it's just too risky for me. I wouldn't take him unless he fell to like 10 to 12. And
Oh,
even then,
you're really
wow.
not taking him. Wow.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm with Marty. I think I would take him number 4. I think I would take him after Ronald Acuna, Julio, Mookie Betts. I would take him 4.
I need to see it for multiple years before I'm willing to invest that high a pick.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I think the 50+ steals is why people are on him as much as they are. Obviously,
In the batting
285.
average.
Yeah,
and the
285
runs.
batting average.
I'll just draft Estuary Ruiz and have him tank my batting average, but give me steals.
All right, there you go. Let's move to our 11 to 20 range here. I think that was I'm sorry, 11 to 30 is the next range we'll talk about here. So we'll talk about a few guys going in this 20 group of players. And Marty, why don't you kick us off with someone that you love in the 11 to 30 range?
There's a man a little bit older than 30 named Michael Trout. You might have heard of him. That's what I'm going with. I got him in the 7th round of a Glarf draft. The injury risk is huge. It is. But I think if you can get him in the 7th round, I think that's okay for me to take my first big swing at upside. He may have back problems. He may not even play that much, just like the last 3 seasons. Or he stays somewhat healthy and hits you 40 home runs, hits around 260. And I was talking to Eric Halterman at the bar after the Glarf draft, and he writes for RotoWire, and he's on Sirius XM radio and MLB radio, a whole bunch of different other things. And he asked, he's like, should the gap between Mike Trout and Yordan Alvarez be that wide? Looking specifically at his injuries, obviously you should take Yordan first, but should they be 6 rounds apart, considering their profiles? And I thought that was a really interesting question. If Trout's there, I have him in 3 places. It could really
Are they
me,
6 rounds apart right now?
Well, it's first round to set. I got him in the 7th, so maybe he might have fell in my draft compared.
Yeah, because according to ADP, it should be like 4 rounds.
Yeah, so that's what, man, look at that. Glarf draft got him in the 7th, baby. So that's why I have him like 3 or 4 different places. Even if it's the 4th or 5th round, I think it's a good upside. If you're in an overall, he could really help you, potentially win your league. He's that kind of bat. I don't really have to go into how great he is. It's whether or not you're willing to take that injury risk that early in the draft. If he falls farther than his ADP, I would say do it.
I think I agree with you on that. Obviously, people that are living under a rock, he does not steal bases anymore. He has 3 stolen bases combined over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah,
does anybody think that does anybody think if he became a full-time DH like Yordan Alvarez, he would stay healthy the whole season?
I think it would stay healthier.
Yeah, I think he got ham and bone last year because he got a pitch on the hand, so you can't really do anything about that. He has back issues.
He's starting to be a watered-down version of Giancarlo Stanton.
I wouldn't go there because his batting average is way better.
I meant with his body type and the type of injuries that he's getting.
Well, I mean, I think Mike Trout, I still wouldn't put him in that category because I feel like Giancarlo Stanton's like a legit bodybuilder. Mike Trout is muscular and is thick, but I wouldn't say I would classify him the same exact way. I think you could say he's injured like Giancarlo Stanton is in terms of the amount of games he's missing. But
well, that's what I'm saying. And for the record, Mike Trout, I like him as well. Do you guys think Mike Trout gets traded at all?
I don't think with his contract.
I don't think his contract is as bad now with the new generation of people getting paid. This thought came to me. It reminds me of the Damian Lillard situation for the NBA. An NBA or an MVP caliber type guy, albeit Damian Lillard isn't on a Hall of Fame trajectory just like Mike Trout is, but somebody that had spent their entire career with one team, perpetually the team underperformed each year, and at a certain point they said, okay, we're going to grant you a trade and we're going to let you try to contend for a title. Now that Ohtani didn't re-sign with the Angels and they depleted their farm system last year to trade for Lucas Giolito for a couple weeks, it feels like at a certain point they're going to trade him. And the Angels general manager said on December 5th, Mike Trout won't be traded this offseason. He didn't say anything about during the season. He said the off season. Wouldn't surprise me closer to the All-Star break if they're out of contention, if maybe they move him.
I still think the contract's going to be a problem. Where do you think he's ranked in terms of salary this year among MLB players?
I would say 4 to 5.
Over the next,
well,
over the
just
next
for
7
this
years,
season, just for
he's
this
gonna be
season.
making- Okay.
This season, he's number 7. The head of him is Shohei Ohtani, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Jacob deGrom, Aaron Judge, and Anthony Rendon. Anthony Rendon's making more money than him this year, which is kind of wild.
That is wild.
But Mike Trout on his deal, so he's making $37 million this year. He is locked in until 2031.
30.
2031 is when he's an
20?
unrestricted free agent, and he's making $35 million a year going forward. So,
but teams might take that because they've never, like Mike Trout has
For
never been
37.
available. Mike Trout has never been available. If you can get someone like that caliber, like teams might trade for that.
but you're getting
Yeah,
a guy that's missed a lot of
But
games.
built in the price. Anytime we're talking about price, we have to remember, like, if you've ever been to where the Angel Stadium, he is that team. Like, everyone has a Trout jersey. Every little kid, every boy, girl, dads, moms, everyone has Trout stuff. So he makes that money back tenfold in what he does for that actual organization. Now, on the field, money-wise, I could see a team taking that on if he has one healthy year. Or maybe 5 months of health, being healthy. I could see it. I could see it happening.
Or the Angels say, okay, we'll pay half of his remaining salary if the team that we're trading him to takes the rest.
I thought of that, but they just came out today. Actually, shout out to MLB trade rumors. I'm on that a lot. The Angels are looking to cut payroll for this year specifically. Like Artie Moreno refused. He says, I am not going to sell, and we're going to cut payroll. So I don't expect anybody else to come in there. And that's why I don't think he'd want to pay some of his, maybe he would, maybe that is cutting, maybe that is like pay some of it to get rid of it. I could see why he would want to do that, but I don't know. It's a good question, man.
Mike Trout has played in 100 games just once in the last 4 seasons. In the one season, he played over 100 games in the last 4 years. He had 40 home runs. So obviously he can still produce. I think that's never a question. It's just his health at this point, but it will be interesting to see if
I kind of like this scenario where the Padre or the Yankees trade Giancarlo, who is making around the same but has less years. So it's more of like a salary swap. I kind of like that.
I feel like they would
tell him to kick rocks.
Yeah, I think they would want more than that.
I mean, Giancarlo and some prospects, but I don't hate that.
To shed salary, I mean, how many more years are on Stanton's deal?
I'll look right now.
If it's like 2, maybe, or 1, why not?
Yeah, but I think there's more than that.
Yeah,
All
probably.
Right, let me pull that up.
While he's pulling that up, Doc, that was also your was Mike Trout as well. So you guys were both on the same page on that.
I also like Randy Arozarena, just as you're looking that up, Doc. I think it's a safe pick as far as, 25 homers, around 20 steals. I'll bet you he won't kill you in batting average, probably somewhere around 250, 260, hitting atop the lineup. So close 180 runs or 180 combined RBI and runs. I think he's at this point, he's not a sexy pick. A couple of years ago after his playoff run, it was like, ooh, Randy Arozarena. Now I think he's where he should be. And I think that's a really good pick right there. And if I can read your mind, David, I would rather have him than Adolis Garcia. No doubt about it. It's not even close.
I was looking at Adolis, so I wanted to double check. I'm pretty sure Randy Arozarena is the last player in this range that you can get a guaranteed 20 steals from once you get outside Michael Harris, because Luis Robert did get 20 steals if I'm he got 20 steals last year. So when you get down to Randy Arozarena, you are hitting a cliff in terms of steals.
How many plate appearances did it take Robert to get the to get the 20 stolen bases? Like, how often was he playing?
546 plate appearances last year.
So he still missed about 100 at bat. Okay, all right, I could see that again then.
I mean, but he's also going again before Randy Arozarena. So once you get to his ADP, all these outfielders you look at, Nolan Jones isn't stealing 20 bases. Cody Bellinger isn't stealing 20 bases. Nolan Jones, maybe he did steal 20. He did steal 20 last year, surprisingly.
367 at bats.
So maybe I'm not giving him enough credit there. Bellinger stole 20. So actually, I don't
think Bellinger's getting 20.
I was going to make the point that Jazz Chisholm can steal 20 bases, but he's not healthy usually long enough to steal 20 every year. I was going to make the point that
to your point, I think he's the safest guy to get you 20 or more at that. And that's why I like him. It's like, it's just floor, nothing really to worry about, nothing to worry about. He's going to play a lot.
He's a safe 20-20 player.
Yeah.
Like, you know what you're getting with him.
So I looked up Giancarlo Stanton's contract. The next 2 years, he's making $64 million. Then 2026, it drops down to $29 million. Then 2027 drops down to $25 million. And then in 2028, there's a club option, which no team would pick up in their right mind.
So that's 4 years left on it?
So that's 4 years as opposed to Trout's 7. And it's less money over 4. I mean, if you did Giancarlo Stanton, Jason Dominguez, and maybe like another prospect, I feel like
I don't know if they're giving those guys up, though.
That would be the old school Yankee way, though. Like if the 90s Yankees would do it.
Can you imagine an outfield, though, of Judge, Soto, and Trout? That might be the best outfield in the last, 30 years.
They're going to need 3 DH spots.
Yeah, right.
At some point. But yeah.
Does anybody think Nolan Jones' ADP at the 14th outfielder, pick 52, is too high? He's a very popular breakout candidate this year.
Well, if you're going for an overall, I think it's fine. Yeah.
20 homers, 62 RBIs, 20 stolen bases, 297 batting average, playing in Colorado, where they don't have a lot of depth of actually good major league talent.
Yeah,
Let me take a look here, David.
I don't hate it. I feel like he's definitely a roto league guy rather than points. I'm looking at his strikeout rate last year, 29.7.
Yeah, definitely strikes out a lot, but he also walks at a 12.5% clip as well.
I mean, his BABIP was 401 last year, though, and his BABIP in AAA was 432.
So you could potentially look at him. He, in a cup of coffee with Cleveland, 28 games in 2022, hit 244. So maybe you say his batting average would more be like 260, 270, but also again in Colorado, you're in an inflate batting average there. So you get maybe he's like a 270 batting average player, which is still above average.
I think it's interesting to see a barrel, because his barrel percentage is 15.7. So nearly 16% of the time he's barreling the ball. That would put him, obviously like a clear number one if he was able to do that over a full season, I think. But it's weird to see that and then look at his minor league numbers, and he never hit more than 18 home runs in a full year. I know he's in Coors, so maybe 22.
David,
his barrel percentage in Cleveland was also 14.5%. So like he's done it since he's been in the big leagues.
Ball, man.
David,
it could be worth it.
You'll know this because you have FanGraphs pulled up, but he had a 297 batting average last year. But you know what the expected batting average was?
Well, I actually don't have FanGraphs pulled up.
247. That's a big discrepancy.
XBA with players in Coors is weird though, because they do take park factor into it, and I don't know how you can balance that. The extremes of that, and then when he leaves that, I don't know if XBA does a good job with Coors players because of that reason, or maybe they do. I just logically, I don't know how they're able to adjust because it is you're playing on a different planet essentially.
Yeah,
I don't know.
especially if you've been there for a game,
Yeah, I think Nolan Jones, I do like him. I think he'd be one of those guys that I will draft some of. I'm not going to be like, I have to get Nolan Jones, but I'm sure he's one of those guys you don't want to have FOMO of like, I don't want to have any teams where I don't draft him, if that makes sense.
Do you think we're drafting him at his ceiling?
But
I think he could provide a little bit more power. I think stolen bases are probably at his ceiling, but
Boris does bring up a good point, which I think is a really good thing to bring up here. There's so many good pitchers that also go in that range. I think that's a key point here. Is right now we're looking at the outfielder ADP, but we are not looking at the pitchers that they're going around.
Yeah.
So
Aaron Nola, Logan Webb.
Like this could be a point. Maybe you went hitter, with your first 3 picks, and this is where you're like, all right, I'm going pitcher. Like Nolan Jones just falls in the range of players that I'm just not looking at hitting here, which I think is very fair to say, especially with everybody kind of pushing pitching down. This is, I feel like, kind of where this could be where you might attack your pitching.
Forrest, you're exactly right. Especially if you're in a 15-team league, I like going 2 bats and then getting hopefully Logan Webb's there or a Nola, a Peralta. Hey, I'm a Logan Gilbert guy, so I would put Logan Gilbert near that tier as well. So they're all those guys that you can get in there.
Yeah. So Forrest says he'll have no shares. I think I will have a couple, but I'm not going out of my way to get him with the ADP with those pitchers there. On the back end of kind of this ADP, is we haven't really. I didn't see your guys' dislikes in the chat because I'm being a bad host right now.
I dislike Jazz for very similar reasons that I dislike.
I like how you put Jazzy Jeff Chisholm. I appreciate that.
Yeah, DJ Jazzy Jeff Chisholm.
I mean, obviously it's the injury, I'm sure.
It's the injuries. So, but games missed by season last year, 65. Year before that, 102. Year before that, 38. The year before that, 39. Last year, 30.8 K percentage, the highest of his career. I went back and looked. So the highest average he's had, or the highest average he's had in a year, when you look at shortened, whatever, full seasons, injured, COVID, 254. But sometimes people get hot and cold. So I felt like 280 was a good batting average barometer. How many months has he had a 280 batting average or above, where he can get really streaky? And he's had 2 months in his career where he's played more than 5 games and had a batting average above 280. So to me, when your batting average is capped and you don't walk a lot like he does and you strike out a lot, that means to me that caps the counting stats upside. I think he's a very tantalizing player because, he could have 20-20 upside. But at the same time, there are so many holes in his game. And I think he's a great marketable player. I think being on the cover of the show might have pushed up his ADP. But if you looked at a blind resume, I don't think it's worth it. At outfield 17, he's a high-end outfielder too in a 15-team league. And I'm not willing to pay for that. 5th round, ADP 67.
If he were, just for fun's sake, if he played in 130 games, what would his stats be?
130 games, 242, 24 home runs, 31 steals.
I think it would be better than that.
What do you think would be better?
His stolen bases.
I would take that, though.
He had, in half a season last year, 352 at bats. He had
97 games and he had 22 steals. I think that's fair. To say he would have 9 and 33 more games.
I feel like he would have closer to 40.
He played 124 games in 2021 and stole 23 bags. Now, granted, that's before the base path rules changed, but I don't know. 318 BABIP last year when it was 294 the year before. I think 30-ish if he played around there. But, once again, I want to, if I'm investing this high of a pick, I need to see it happen before. I'll let him play a full season and say, okay, I'll be in next year or a future year. But the draft price is still too high. And I've been beating the drum for a while that I'm anti-Jazz as a fantasy pick. Great player to watch.
Marty, what about you?
David, I don't have an answer for you. There's not really anybody out of these guys who I'd say I'm not drafting that guy. Every single person, there's I can see a reason and a team built for it. So can you scroll up for me just a little bit? Maybe Adolis because of he's getting older, and I just don't know how much longer he's going to have that speed as the Rangers continue to get better. And I don't think I've ever drafted him, so maybe not Adolis Garcia, but every one of those guys I could see a reason. I'm waiting for Cody where he signs. I don't have him anywhere, and I don't know what to do with a guy who can't hit the ball hard. And so probably not Cody or Adolis.
What about Josh Lowe here? Josh Lowe at the 18th outfielder was one of the most frustrating players to have in all fantasy last year, but he still finished with 20 homers and 32 stolen bases.
Let me take a look at. Yeah, I mean, he just strikes out a lot, but it's weird to see a guy strike out that much and then still have a strong XBA.
And
But
they
he
sat
barrels.
him a lot towards down the stretch. Like he was not. There were weeks where he would sit like 3 or 4 games. It was insane.
Was it split wise? Is that because
Yes. Yeah.
what he can? Yeah. So versus lefties, he only had 63 at bats when he had 403
Yep.
versus righties.
They don't play him
So,
versus lefties.
all right. So the Rays platoon everybody. So yeah, I could see that would be a good reason not to have him, because maybe you get 450 at bats when everybody else in that range is can get you 550, maybe 600. I mean, not Christian Yelich. He won't stay healthy that long. Although I do like Christian. Yeah, I'll take
Schwarber at the 81st pick for 40 bombs.
40 bombs, and just got to build the rest of your team around his batting average. But I mean, it's still. I think he's underrated for what he does in all those other 4 categories because the batting average is so bad.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody think there's a bounce back season coming for Jordan Walker, and that this 110 ADP could be a discount? He did look a lot different after he came back up from the minors.
I was gonna say, look at this is his first year in the big league. 16 homers, 7 stolen bases, batting 276. I mean, what do you want from the guy?
I think people were drafting him with a top 50 or 60 pick, expecting he was going to win Rookie of the Year.
Those are people who pay attention. I drafted him early. I knew he was going to be this good. No, you didn't.
Don't kick sand on me. That was me.
I liked him too.
Whoops.
But yeah, no, I mean, Jordan Walker could bounce back. I think that's a nice value there as the 21st outfielder off the board, or I'm sorry, the 25th outfielder off the board. Spencer Steer, I don't know if he's going to have a year like he just had this past year. I think that was his career year based on the amount of bodies they have in Cincinnati right now. I know he's multi-position eligible and they can put him a bunch of different places, but I just think they're going to mix and match some bats there. That 23 homers and 15 steals is his ceiling outcome. And that I probably am not drafting him based on that this year. I think just playing time is going to be a factor. Teoscar Hernandez, the 28th outfielder off the board here, playing with the Dodgers. Could we see a JD Martinez part 2?
I think he's fine, but I'm just worried about the plate appearances because there's a guy named Shohei Ohtani who needs to play DH every single day. Teoscar is garbage in the outfield, and he doesn't really hold up that well. So
when I looked yesterday, he was the 31th ranked outfielder. That was going to be my 31 to 50 I like.
Oh, so he's shooting up a little bit, Doc, since you last looked.
I mean, look, 25 plus home runs in 3 straight seasons. He hits the ball hard. I know the K rate is high. Last year is 31.1%, highest of his career, and the walk rate was the lowest at 5.6%. But even if he can get a little bit closer to his career averages of 7% walk rate and 29.7 K percentage, those are his career averages. So we're looking at a little bit better than last year. Right now, he's projected to hit 7th on roster resource. I could see him moving up and to the 6th spot and replacing James Outman. Max Muncy gets hurt, maybe he moves up to the 5th. Like, let's just look at the lineup context. When he was on the Blue Jays and he had his best year in 2021, he had 116 RBIs, and it was a similar profile. I mean, at 31, I'm not willing to say he's lost all of his power. 7 stolen bases. I think there's upside with him, but I can understand if you don't want to draft him.
Okay, fair enough. The last player we'll talk about here, because I want to get to the last range here, is Evan Carter, the World Series of Texas Rangers, who was hitting 3rd in their lineup. One of the best batter's eyes at the plate. My neighbor said he calls him full count Carter because he works the count every single time. 5 homers, 12 RBIs, 12 walks, and 62 plate appearances, a 306 average with a 413 OBP. Are we getting a value here with Evan Carter as the 30th ranked player off the board with the helium that we saw towards the end of the World Series last year? I think we are. I think this is a good value for him. I think this could be one of those players that, I mean, he's the 124th player off the board roughly. So I'm not saying it's like an insane value, but he's one of those guys that I could see being like your 3rd or 4th outfielder, and you're like, I feel good about that.
Man, how many we're 75 career plate appearances. But he's been great in all of them, right? Even though he's striking out 32% of the time, which is pretty scary. But when he does hit the ball, he hits the shit out of it.
Wow, Marty cussed on the pod.
I did.
Don't you like Evan Carter?
A rookie will, a second-year player will get that out of me. I'd rather have him than Jackson Churio. I can say that. I don't think that's too crazy.
I'm looking at the outfielders here, and I would rather take him. I would rather take him over Santander, Cedric Mullins, TJ Friedel, Ian Happ. Yeah.
He's
I'm looking
fast,
at the guys
man.
after him.
He's in the 96th percentile in speed. So he crushes the ball. He runs very fast. Where do we think he's going to be hitting in that lineup, though? Where was he in the playoffs, you said, Doc?
He was hitting third for them in the World Series.
Third in the World. Okay.
I have to look on my phone because my computer blocks roster resource now for some reason. But I can check where they have him hitting.
I mean, is he going to hit against lefties? That's what I'm afraid of.
I think I could see early on in the season them not platooning him because it's not like they have a ton of extra bench bats here. I'm looking now. They have him projected to hit fourth on roster resource.
First righties. Now versus lefties. Last year he had 10 at bats and his average was 0%. So I don't know if they're gonna. I think they're gonna strong side platoon him, which is fine. I think he can still get 20-20 with that.
Let's say Corey Seager isn't ready for opening day with the surgery that he had. Does that change his draft price? And you could say you could use a catch-22 where he's now locked into an everyday role and he's not platooning, or there's going to be less of a supporting cast around him.
I would say I'm never too worried about the supporting cast. I think because maybe we're talking 10 RBIs and 10 runs by the end of it, because Jose Ramirez still puts up good numbers. The only thing that lacks are those RBIs and runs. I'm interested to see who would file in at shortstop. And then does that change? Does that allow him, like you said, just to kind of have to play? I think he's going to play every single day versus righties, and I just don't know against lefties. That's my only hang up on the guy.
Well, I'm trying to look really quick right now what he did against lefties in the minor leagues.
I can look that up, I think. Oh, yeah, I can. Okay, here we go. Let's see.
Versus great podcast here. Whoa. Splits versus lefties. So versus left-handed pitching.
Have fun editing this, Art.
He's not gonna.
Yeah, you can take that. You can take that part out.
He's not gonna edit this part.
He might. Where we at?
I can look at it for the majors, but I don't know if I can look at it for the minors. That's the only thing that sucks. Someone's gonna be like, someone's gonna pull it up and have it. I believe
you and driving in your car furious. Who knows how Evan Carter did in the minors against lefties? I'm sorry for you. Please let us know. We can't find it.
Come on the podcast.
Yeah, we need you. We need an
let's talk about the last range of players here. There's a lot. I actually will read this list off because I know we won't touch about as many players here. So the 31 through 50 range: Jackson Churio, Anthony Santander, Cedric Mullins, TJ Friedel, Ian Happ, Jorge Soler, Wyatt Langford, Jaron Duran, Chas McCormick, Riley Green, Tommy Edman, Masataka Yoshida, Brandon Nimmo, James Outman, Chris Morel, Lars Nootbaar, Stephen Kwan, Dalton Varsho, Starling Marte, and Kerry Carpenter. That is the 31 through 50 range. I'm going to give each of you one or two names that you would like to bring up from that range that you especially like here. Doc, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, I didn't even realize Masataka Yoshida was that low. I mean, look, I know he's going
to be DH. I mean, he's outfield eligible, but he's their full-time DH from everything I've read this year.
I mean, that's fine. Last year, 289 sometimes we see people struggle in their first year. I don't think he struggled at all. 289 average, 15 home runs, 143 runs plus RBIs, 8 stolen bases, played 140 games. You could argue that the Red Sox lineup got better. I'm looking into his splits now. I mean, I don't think he killed you at any point during the season. I mean, the first half, 316, 10 home runs, 47 runs. I mean, I just think that's not a sexy name, but I think he's going to contribute in every category.
I'm looking right now. 14% strikeout rate is amazing. Did not walk at all. 5.9% walk rate. That is not going to get the job done. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pulling this up also because I'm pretty sure his ground ball rate was also very high. 56% ground ball rate. So that's also a problem. And if I'm not mistaken, I also remember his BABIP also being a little bit high, 316. So there's potentially a lot of room if his launch angle isn't very good, 4.2 degrees with a 316 BABIP. Obviously, I know he's fast, so I know that impacts that and raises it a little bit. But if he's hitting the ball on the ground this much and he's not barreling the ball at all, what's his realistic ceiling here? A barrel percentage of 6.3%.
I think an accumulator. I mean, look, we're looking right now in the 31 to 50 range. He's guaranteed playing time. He's in a arguably better lineup than last year. He's giving you a little bit in each category, not killing you in batting average. I mean, even if you want to say the home runs decrease, would you say 10 to 12 is realistic?
Yeah, but
and then he should have more than 8 stolen bases, given his sprint speed.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you might see some regression in some categories, but you might see improvements in others.
I think he's a really good safe piece, like a building block piece. Like you've already gotten, you've gotten a couple. You got Kyle Schwarber, a couple other home run guys. You need somebody to boost up your average, get you 10 stolen bases with some runs. I think he's fine. I'm not worried about his ground ball rate because the way he hits is different. Like Ichiro Suzuki hit the ball into the ground. He batted 330. So there's just a different way that he bats. So I'm not worried about launch angles and power. He's 30 years old. He's not going to really change anything. I think what is the ceiling? What he did last year. And I think it could be a little bit I think his batting average could be lower.
And he's going around. I mean, I would rather have him than Tommy Edman.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd rather have him than I don't want Brandon Nimmo. I don't want James Outman. I don't want Morrell.
What about him or Riley Green?
I'll take Riley Green, but there's
13. It's about a round difference.
I think Riley Green has a lot more upside, I think. But the injury is what kind of scares me because he's constantly hurt. But Yoshida's 30 years old. So I don't know.
I would take him over Jarren Duran.
I was thinking that too.
I would take Duran because of the stolen bases. And that's actually my like for that guy. So we can just hop right into that.
Go ahead.
And it's because of that reason where he's at, those stolen bases. With a 24 last year and 332 at bats. So let's say he gets 500, 600 plate appearances. I'm not going to double that, but 30, 35, I think that's fine. Expecting batting average looks pretty good. I think the home runs are going to top out around 15. I think that would be amazing if he hit you 15 home runs for the year. But basically, I guess he kind of is Yoshida, but with a lot more stolen bases.
Well, here's my thing about Jarren Duran. He missed the last month or so of the season with turf toe and had to undergo surgery for that. So, I mean, does that impact like that? That's something where you could say your toe planting off of that and running could directly impact your stolen bases more than like running or more than hitting because it's not your back, it's not biceps, your shoulder. I worry about a toe injury for banking on someone that's going to have stolen bases more than any other body part. That's just me personally.
No, that's interesting. I did know he had that, but I didn't think about the long term. I'm a Mr. Google doctor here. So let's say from surgery 2 to 6 months, so that lead us right to it. It doesn't change anything, but that's definitely interesting. It doesn't change anything for me, but it might now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know. Nah, we're good. I'd still be okay with it. We're okay.
Are you worried at all about how he kind of fell off the face of the earth towards the end of last year?
I think it. Yeah, I mean, I don't love that, but I don't know. He's still. That was his first full season, so okay. I guess his first full half season.
I think I'd rather have Chas McCormick or Wyatt Langford. I think I like both of those guys going around him better. Chas McCormick hopefully get full-time role in the outfield next year. 19 stolen bases, had 22 home runs with a 273 batting average.
I'm okay taking Chas McCormick, and as you guys know, and I've said on this pod, he thinks I'm funny.
Yeah. And Wyatt Langford.
I thought it was Bregman.
I made the sign for Bregman, but Chas McCormick laughed, and yeah. So, I mean, look, he's bumping up my draft board for that reason.
Jorge Soler signed with the Giants since our last pod.
That's a 3-year deal.
3-year deal. He's a 30 homer bat. Even in San Francisco, he's probably hitting, I would think, around 30 homers. Granted, he stays healthy. So if you're missing power, this is definitely one of those later power targets you can try to get. Right now, he is going around 158 ADP. So again, if you're needing power, that's someone I would go get in that range there. I would get him over Ian Happ because I think he's going to give you more of a definite category than Happ will at this point. Any other guys that you want to bring up in this range here, guys, before we get out of here?
I want to say real quick on Chas McCormick, if we're worried about lineup, he might be at the back of the lineup most of the time. Where Jaron's going to be at the top of the Red Sox. So, do with that as you will. I love me some Ian Happ. Ian Happ is he's like my missionary position. It's never the best, but it's always pretty good.
What's gotten into you today, Marty?
Hey,
he's
I'm
art for the
how
night.
I see it. Yeah, I had to fill in for the dirty art. But yeah, outside of Happ's horrible podcast, I really like him. I think he's going to hit you somewhere 20, 25 homers, bat around 260. He's going to bat third or fourth in the lineup every day. He is probably one of the most unsexy players. Sarah Sanchez, who's a big Cubs fan, and she loves, obviously, fantasy baseball and everything like that. Very smart player. She's even out on him. So I don't know. I think it's just like one of those picks that's like, it's easy for me. Like, I know he's going to play. The ceiling's not that high, but the floor's fine. He's a good building block piece, but he has no upside at all. So if you're searching for upside, don't do it.
I'm with you on that for Ian Happ. Brandon Nimmo, I think, is a nice value. It's the 43rd player off the board, or 43rd outfielder off the board as well. I think I liked James Outman before the Teoscar signing. Now I'm not sure. He does have a direct path every day at bats like we thought he might get before. And Stephen Kwan, the 47th outfielder off the board, is a great batting average asset. That's
some steals.
He'll give you some steals, yeah.
Lars Nootbaar or Yoshida?
I'll take Lars Nootbaar because I heard Eno talk about that. He looks like he really made some tangible changes from his struggles at the beginning of the year, and I do buy into that. His end of the year numbers 281 or 261 batting average.
Yeah,
14 homers, 46 RBIs, 11 steals. I think there's a higher ceiling there for him.
I think is there a clear path for him to play every day?
Yes, St. Louis is not exactly rolling with hitting prospects right now. And they just traded Tyler O'Neill, so that's another player that's gone.
That is true. I did forget about that.
We will talk about next week. But I think that's about it. That's, I think, all we'll cover tonight. Dalton Varsho is pretty much left for dead now that he's not a catcher eligible.
Dude, I have him in almost every league. I don't know how I managed to do that. And I don't like it. I think he's going to bat 220, and he's going to be at the back of that lineup. And he has terrible contact skills, but he might get you 15 stolen bases and 15 home runs. So I drafted him. So in 6 months, I might be pissed about it, but we'll see.
All right. Well, that's, I think, going to wrap up our outfielder.
People remind me in 6 months to text Marty about Dalton Varsho.
Yeah, talk crap about Dalton Varsho. I don't even want. He's one of those players you just draft, and the second you draft him, you're like, why did I do that?
Well, that's going to wrap up our outfield part 1 preview. If you guys are enjoying the content and you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you guys like and subscribe to the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel and leave a comment just for the algorithm, like our guy Forrest, who we really appreciate being in the chat tonight, hanging out with us on a random Thursday night in the off season. And as he says, swing for the fences, because that's always a good motto to live by. And if you guys, again, are listening to the podcast, which we also do appreciate as well, please make sure if you haven't rated and reviewed the show, that also helps us get seen by more people. We're always trying to expand our audience, so it's much appreciated. But for Marty, for Doc, I'm D. Mendy. We're going to make like a bread truck, and we're going to haul these buns. Talk to you guys next week.